Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day one, or day two, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, well, I thought we'd take a different tact and tackle the apocalypse, because really preparing for the end of the world, what's really more than the end of the world than the biblical apocalypse, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that kind of sounds like, fire, brimstone, all of it, right?
All the stuff, man.
All the stuff. Now, I don't know. Some of the, I know I got a fair amount of atheists that listen to this show, and all the different types, everybody to each their own, and that's all cool. But remember, just before you get all, oh, Chuck, you're so crazy, you do listen to me talk about aliens. I'm just saying.
Right. We talk about all sorts of stuff that's off the wall, so I think it's all right.
We're in one more segment of, well, maybe on the outside of the curve, this might happen too. So it's one more level of preparedness, and you may just be entertained. Who knows? I might be able to pull something off. I'll try and avoid just reading scripture straight through, and we should be all right. So, Kevin, what is it? What is the apocalypse? I guess kind of, it really, we get it from Revelations, the last book of the Bible, right?
Right.
Now, I think people comprise the full details from, there are 3 different books that it seems to come from. I mean, maybe 4. So you get a good bit in the prophecy books from Daniel, from Isaiah,
right,
from Matthew in the New Testament, and then Revelations. Now, Revelation
right.
was,
touches on it too.
Yeah, what was by John, and John, they're not even sure which guy. I keep hearing different opinions on which guy did. But they believe that he was one of the disciples, right?
Yeah, supposedly most people believe it's one of the disciples. There's a minority that think John of Patmos was a different guy altogether.
Right, and that's it. And this was basically a vision that he had, talking with Jesus, actually talking to him, and Revelations.
Right.
Jesus talking to him, and it was basically a letter to the different churches, and kind of warning them of where they're at and what things might come, and why that could be an issue.
Right.
So that's where it all comes through. And then prophecy always throughout scripture had talked about a return of Christ and that kind of thing. And basically people going to be with God. Right. And that was the big thing. The underlying theme that seemed to be recurring throughout. And so anyway, basically, what do you think? What do you know about all this, Kevin?
Well, I think it's been a thing for a while. It's been growing up. That was a big thing. And in a lot of the Pentecostal and evangelical churches, it was a big thing talking about the end days and it was always, there were always people like coming to the church to they had special insights on this and that. And you can read Revelations and come up with a million different things out of it,
all day.
Or you can just read what it actually says and just assume that everything word for word is what it means, There could be things, a lot of metaphors in there, a lot of stuff that, different colors that symbolize different things, different churches that actually symbolize different time periods going forward through history. And, there's a lot of stuff there that people read into, and there's a lot of stuff there that's just, you could just take it for face value.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's stuff that you're just like, I have no idea what that means. And right. I think some of that is meant to be, kind of like with prophecy with different things, is a lot of, sometimes it's revealed to you when it matters. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might not make sense to you or be obvious right now, but when it's relevant and time, it might be like, oh, this is where we're going with that. So I don't know. I seem to remember, like you said, it seemed like back in the day with the churches, you used to always have like guest lecture things or things people would put on, things where they're sure of their whole prophecy thing and they're going to explain it all. And like you said, Ozzy was going to bring us all to hell. And, I remember there was that movie Trick or Treat. I don't know if you ever saw it. It had like Gene Simmons, or I think was in it for a minute. And anyway, it had Ozzy in it. And Ozzy played a preacher. And Ozzy was always on there going, you're all going to go to hell. And he's holding the album covers like, oh, look, they're all bad. And it just, that's kind of what people come to mind when they talk about, Revelation in the Bible. That's the fear, and everybody like recoils and is like, ooh, I don't want to hear any of that. I don't need it and whatever. And that's fine. And, to each your own, right? Let's, we're just giving you another take and another thing to kind of prepare for and kind of understand. And I would say understanding, I don't even know what percentage of the population anymore and where they're coming from probably wouldn't hurt you. That's, we're talking about probably, what would you say? Maybe a third of the population believes in Christianity, or where are we at this point in the
right? I think in the United States, we're closer to 65, 70%. Worldwide, obviously, it's a big difference. There's a big difference there, especially when you get over to Europe. There's a lot of atheists, lot less Christianity in Europe, obviously a lot less in the Middle East and Asia.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a sliding scale of how much people believe or accept it, how committed you are to the whole thing. I don't mean percentage of the population, but out of that percentage that acknowledge some kind of Christianity, how committed they are to that idea, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's kind of dig into the meat within the nut. Now, whenever you see, like I know as a kid, when we'd see these movies or stories about it, different things, it would be, they'd always talk about, one, the rapture, right? So what's that? Now, I guess throughout scripture, I know in Matthew and in Revelation, they talk about God calling his people home. Mm-hmm. And, at one point they do describe it as, he comes in the clouds and there's the verse about two people will be working in the field and one will, be disappear and called up to God and the other one not. Mm-hmm. And there's a scripture that I was looking at that talked about, those who follow and adhere to God's word are going to be spared a lot of these tribulations and, are not appointed for judgment and that kind of thing. And you won't be called up. But so one of the things, the key things here that you take away from this book is that, the Christians will be called up to heaven and they'll be raptured is the word that a lot of people use. I don't know how people take a different word, different thing on it. So they might be disappeared, But there's a lot of other judgments and things that go on, and a lot of things that happen that talk about biblically. And I kind of wanted to lay it all out because I wanted to do another episode where we talk about how to prepare for these judgments, specifically. But if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it kind of makes it fall short, Now, Kevin, do you have any kind of timeline? I do. If you don't, but
yeah. Well, let's go. Most of this is from Matthew 24, where
okay,
Jesus talks specifically about about what's going to happen and kind of the timelines, right?
Right. No, hang on. Let me stage it. This is called like the Olivet speech kind of thing. So this is when at the Mount of Olives, Jesus is gathered with the disciples kind of at the end times, I believe, the end of his life, right before he's crucified, right before Easter, or, Passover is what we really call it. Not for, we'll stay away from the other, but, and he's talking to him and he's like, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is things to come. And so, all right, sorry, had to set that up.
Right. So, all right. First thing he touches on is wars and rumors of war. So, I guess you could look at it right now and say there's, a war going on in Israel. There's a war going on in Ukraine. But, there have been time periods in our past where there have been a lot more war than what's going on right now. There was
100%.
70 years ago, there's the whole damn world was going to war,
Yep.
So, and a lot of people during the First World War were actually talking about this as a prophecy,
biblical end time. Yep,
right.
All day.
Mm-hmm. Next thing he hits on is natural disasters, earthquakes, and things like that.
Yep.
Increase in persecution of Christians.
Yeah, martyrdom. A lot of that, a lot of people being kind of forced to defend their faith kind of thing. And, now there is a lot of that going on against the Jewish people as a whole, but not necessarily Christianity so much as yet.
No, really.
Society, we do kind of people look down and shun Christians because they definitely set themselves up for a bad taste in the 80s, I think.
Yeah. When what was the satanic panic when all the everyone was scared their kids were going to get abducted by devil worshippers and stuff, but whatever. There's a lot of persecution going on with Christians in the Middle East and with Christians in China. But I don't know that that's specifically, I think it's more of a widespread thing that they're talking about, that Jesus was talking about. Yeah. The next one I've got here is false prophets. False prophets, people claiming to be Jesus, people claiming that they've seen Jesus, people, claiming that they are getting divine, words. Obviously, you can go to any city and find a crazy person that believes he's Jesus or that, he's talking to him and that he's got, special words. But, there's crazy people everywhere and crazy comes in all different kinds. So, that's one of them. Next one is an increase in lawlessness. I guess you could say that when there's no, when you get arrested and they just let you right back out. That's what's going on in New York State. They just, they got a guy a couple of months back. They got a guy. He was DUIing. They pulled him over.
Yeah,
impounded his car. Let him out. He was trying to find drugs, and so he stole somebody's car. They pulled him over, caught him, let him out, and then they arrested him a third time, actually physically trying to buy drugs. It's like he wasn't going to quit, man. It was going
to be a bad night for the guy either way.
So
that's one of those days where you should have just stayed in bed instead.
Right. He just kept going at it, and they just kept arresting him. But whatever, different strokes. I feel like in most states that would have the second two incidents wouldn't have ever happened, but whatever. Now Daniel says, Daniel 12:4 talks about an increase of knowledge during the end times.
Yes.
So that's interesting because I feel like this is the age of information that we're in.
This age. Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that. I think that is kind of a unique time thing. Like, I agree with you. Everything you've said, and I don't have any, I'm not going to drop any big, oh, well, this is happening now at the end of the episode. I think every description that, we've gone through, the increase, everything, famines and whatever, people have felt like that for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a new, and I could even say thousands of years. The apostles that followed Jesus actually were sure that it was going to happen in their lifetime, in the next, any minute.
Right.
These things are going on. So I think anybody who's like, oh, well, look now, I do think there are things that make it more possible and relevant right now with the technology and with the advancements. We'll talk about, the buying money and the mark and all that stuff in a minute. But I think it's a lot more possible now. Also, kind of one world government and things like that kind of get, tied into now. But a lot of these things, I feel like it's always been. I think there's been periods where there's more wars and rumors of wars than there is now. I think people saw it as more earthquakes and crime, or more earthquakes and famine and disaster in the past. We had some bad times. I mean, you talk about the Dust Bowl and different things like that. Now, mind you, it was man-made, the Dust Bowl and all that. But just the same, it still happened and people saw it that way, perceived it, as bad things coming. And, the plagues that hit Israel were, pretty devastating to the people. I think we see it now and it's more in your face just because we have a global news kind of thing. Like everything is in your face. Like, oh, there's a tornado, there's an earthquake.
Right.
Well, yeah, there is, but it's not really affecting you or anywhere near you or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And yet it's brought to your attention. And so I think it makes you feel like there's more of an urgency or there's more bad things going on, just in this time. Mm-hmm. But,
yeah. All right. So next one on our list is an increase in immorality. Now, I think most people, when they talk about immorality, they think about, weird sex stuff, right?
It's always
that's not stuff. Yeah, that's not necessarily what immorality means. It's anything that's immoral, lying, cheating, stealing. Now, what I have noticed, though, is a solid decrease in random hookups. Really? It seems like after COVID,
don't care about sex anymore. Yeah.
After COVID, people stopped bumping uglies. People are not going out to the bar, singles bars and hitting it as much. People are talking about it a lot, but nobody's actually. There aren't very many people doing it. Which, I mean, whatever. I mean, I was 21 once. I acted wild, but whatever. It doesn't seem like the 21-year-olds are still out there.
They're not as interested.
Being crazy. No.
A lot of the studies and surveys report that kids just are not interested in having sex, at least with other people, or
right.
They might be happy to look at porn or something on their phone, but nobody wants to go meet other people in this modern. Yeah,
it's gross and sticky and
people smell
nasty.
Who knows what's going on out there.
All right. The next one I got here is the spread of gospel to the entire world. That's Matthew 24:14.
Okay.
So now I know that people have been talking about that for a long time. And that's one of the, actually, weirdly, that's one of the main reasons a lot of churches support missionary trips, is because they think that, Jesus won't come back until the entire world knows and has a chance to say yes or no. Right. In an increase in deception and false signs and wonders.
Now, I think there is an increase in deception. I feel like more and more all the time. But again, it's more relevant now that we see the worldwide news. However, right. I don't know if we're seeing signs and miracles. I feel like there's less in that increase in corruption. We do have that.
Yeah, it does seem to be pretty rampant, at least in the United States, I think that, a lot of us as Americans our lens is viewed through like what's happening in our country right now.
All day.
But there's a whole planet of stuff going on.
There's other people?
Yeah. Actually, check out, go to Italy and see how their government works, because they got some corruption issues over there themselves, There's a lot of places in the world.
Some corruption issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's absolutely an increase in corruption in the United States, or at least perceived. Maybe it's just we know about it now, and before everybody was getting away with that stuff.
Yeah.
And the final one I have here, it's not the only these aren't the only signs, this is 10 of the top 10.
But all right.
Yeah. Increase in frequency of these signs. So all these things are, we've talked about these. All these things are happening now. But they're saying an increase in the amount of, this stuff. So maybe it's not just the crazy person that claims to be Jesus. Maybe there's some actual people with 3-piece suits doing it, coming up.
Yeah.
So we'll have to watch out for this sort of stuff, and things like this can flip on a dime.
Yeah, I think that's right. So yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I kind of, I think we're going to circle back a little bit to more of the kind of what, but the when, you're touching on this increase of signs, things like that. One of the ones I always heard when I was a kid going to church was, well, the nation that sees Israel become a nation will be the one that, that sees the return of Christ. Mm-hmm. There's a quote, Matthew 24:34 says, it's Jesus talking, and he says, "I tell you the truth, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened." And one of the things he had described was, this is referencing Deuteronomy 4:28. The Jewish people would enter the land of Joshua and then would turn away and be scattered among the Gentiles, but they would regather in the latter days for the return of Christ. Now, people always said, oh, well, Israel, there's kind of that homecoming of the Jewish people in 1948. Well, I got to say, 1948, you don't think it's that long ago. It's like one of those things with the memes on the internet. You're like, oh, back in the 80s. And you're like, ooh, like 45 years ago? Like what? That's a long time ago. It turns out if you're going to say a generation, that time is coming to an end or past. I would kind of say past. Mm-hmm. And people, I kind of looked up like what the take was on that, because the church had always said, like, and again, we don't know. We're not all knowing. We don't know how to, interpret things through God's eyes kind of thing, or however, you would see it. But like, we don't have all the answers. Right. But I would say that's not really a sign I would be pointing to if I was trying to convince somebody. Whereas that was always the thing, when I was a kid, was, oh, it's going to happen. It's imminent because, 1948, that generation, I hear it explained away because I kind of looked it up, and they explain it away as saying, well, they mean when they say a return to Christ, they also mean like spiritually, because the people who have returned back to Jerusalem and to Israel are not necessarily Christian people. They're Jewish but they're not people who are like Christians or following Christ. And I think they kind of describe it as, they talk about like a turning, people following Christ and that kind of thing. And I don't think that's there. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't have all the answers. I just know that was one of the ones always thrown at us. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you touched on all the other ones with the increased corruption, increase, lying and stealing and sinning and wars and stuff. But I feel like that's always been going on. One of the things that makes it different for me is they also mention a lot of one world government kind of thing. They talk about there's a verse about the 10 kings that are rulers of different districts, but under one world government. I know when I was a kid, they used to preach about that as like the UN. They were so sure that was
the UN was it. Yeah.
Now, mind you, the UN is such a corrupt, shady little organization that it kind of fits to be the Antichrist. You know?
But they really just don't have a whole lot of power, and they don't really accomplish anything. You know,
America seems to be the teeth of the UN, and I mean, I definitely wouldn't think of it as a one world government right now, but I think people were implying that it was like a footstone, you know, a moving into that. But I do think, however, it is more likely that we're a lot closer to the possibility of a one world government. The scriptures also talk about the one world currency. Now, I think that could be just around the corner. They talk about kind of a cashless society.
Bitcoin. And,
you know, and I guess the way they interpret it as cashless is they talk about, you know, there's a form of payment that, you know, you can't kind of get around, and only people who are willing to accept or be a part of that form of payment. You know, they talk about the mark of the beast. You know, that's where you get that whole 666 and the number of man and, you know, all these different things you've heard. That's what they're talking about. And I think, like you said, maybe something like Bitcoin or whatever. I think the big reason that governments push for that is obviously they want to be able to control everything you buy. And my experience is because they want to tax the crap out of you. You know,
right?
It's because they want to tax it.
Is the real, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not really nobody can get away. Nobody can get away from paying taxes.
Right. If you go and have a garage sale and everybody comes and gives you cash for everything they buy, you're supposed to pay taxes on that money.
Oh, yeah, you send that in, right?
But you don't have to because it's cash and they can't catch you. Oh. But if everybody had to come and go to your yard sale with Bitcoin and stuff like that, you know, that's a different game, right? They can track that. If you're using your credit card, they know. Yeah. You know, if you're getting payments from a credit card, they know.
They know. And they know in their heart. They know you're shaking with your lemonade stand on the corner.
Your little lemonade's charging 50 cents for a cup of lemonade. Come on.
Old out there trying to learn how capitalism works.
Mm-hmm. No, you got to put an end to that. You got a permit, son?
Yep. Move along. Do you remember Shay? Shay with the lemonade stand? I don't know. There was a kid, you know, obviously me and Kevin are from the same town. And there was this kid with a lemonade stand. And he'd be out there hustling every day. Like it was constant. And like for years where you'd go by, he'd be out there and ready to go. And, you know, I've seen, you know, cops and everybody out there, you know, got to go, you know, see him because he was polite and respectful and awesome. And that's awesome. I love capitalism and people out there trying to do a thing. But, you know, there's a lot of states out there like crazy California and crazy New York. If you're in the wrong town, that, you know, they'll shut that down. They don't want anything going on without. So, again, I just touch on that because that's one more sign of the world kind of being ready for that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's, you know, I think it's really, you know, and we joke around about lemonade stands and stuff, but really anything black market, you know, buying drugs. You don't buy drugs with a credit card. You don't, you know, you don't buy stolen goods with a credit card.
Now, they do seem to have ways to work out high-end escorts with
Jerry Springer. Do you remember he used to be the governor?
Mayor, I think, of Chicago.
Chicago. Mayor, right. You're right. Yeah. And he got in trouble because he paid a hooker with a check.
Oh.
And that's how they caught him, you know. And then he started his show and became even more famous. So there you go.
You know, there's always, and that was before like we had Elliot Spitzer in New York and it's just an ugly world. And that's the thing, like corruption is kind of endless and whatever. So, all right. So we basically, the mark, they talk about a time when no one will be able to buy unless they kind of, take this mark and go into it. And it just seems like the world is kind of at a point where that's possible. They also talk about, we really couldn't have had a global government, I would say, before the last maybe 30 years. You could maybe go back as far as 50 years. Really, I feel like the technology now, it could very seamless be. Even the technology in the last 15 years,
right.
You could kind of seamlessly. They talk about tracking people and hunting stuff down and that kind of thing. But people have the mark. It's kind of like your cell phone that in your pocket, you have a GPS. Anybody can find anybody. Now, right now, you can leave your cell phone and walk away from it. But if it was a permanent thing, then you might not be able to walk away from it. You put a chip in your hand, it gets harder to get away. Now, we still have cell phones and license plate readers on the cars and every other thing. I mean, and facial recognition. China would probably make an argument that it's pretty hard to just disappear, even if you drop your, phone and everything with their facial recognition. I don't think we're there in America, and we're sure as heck not there worldwide. But things are moving pretty rapidly.
That's right. And facial recognition is getting more and more, more and more prevalent.
I have the beard,
not just governments, it's corporations. And, any corporation that does anything like that, the government can get any information they want. If the government wants to know what you've been looking at, in your Google browser, they can find out. If the government wants to know, where you've been, they can go through the cameras. They can say, oh, you went into Walmart. Let's look through the cameras and see what you bought, see what you were looking at and didn't buy, that sort of stuff. So it's it's more and more prevalent everywhere you go. And the mark of the beast, they talk about it, your forehead or your hand or that sort of stuff. And like you said, you can get rid of your cell phone, but what about once you have Neuralink, once you have it in your head? Right? I can't wait for the day where I can start dreaming in commercials. It's coming. It's coming, man.
Let me interrupt that thought with this message from our sponsor. I feel like in the future, though, you would kind of have like a seamless placement of products and things. They used to try it in maybe it was the 70s, could have been the 50s. I don't know, where, it's like, ooh, and I'm having this nice glass of icy, frosty glass of Coca-Cola. Yeah. Right. Or, hey, I like, but you can do it. Like it used to be the subtle thing they always said with smoking, they'd smoke in the movies and people would,
oh, that's cool, man.
I was told
that guy looked so cool with that cigarette.
The tobacco companies would pay to, hey, just have a character smoking. Mm-hmm. And I think that stuff, I mean, I don't even know how much is true or whatever. I believe that was true. But, I don't have any evidence or proof of this. I'm sure you could probably Google it or whatever. But I do know there was a lot of smoking going on in movies, but there was also a lot of smoking going on in real life. So
that's true.
If, I had that guy smoking. Well, yeah, it turns out if you go into most restaurants in the 70s,
there's a guy smoking.
There was a guy smoking. It's not like some mystery dark thing. That's how it was, how the world was. But I think that's how advertising is probably going to shift, where you don't realize you're being sold.
Right.
And I think, hell, that's what we're seeing with the memes and social media. And I think AI has the technology to really sell you on things, without you being as aware or to put, effort into it where, that's everyone's like, oh, TikTok and stuff like that. And it's all in your feed. I swear Facebook even seems way more targeted as far as like trying to shape my opinion than TikTok does.
Right.
Which maybe TikTok's just better at it. They do it and I don't realize it as much, but who knows? I don't know. I just, because I feel like it's less relevant than the stuff that I see on Facebook or whatever. If I, Facebook Reels or something pops up, it's a bunch of like Korean people or something. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. Like these weird, like maybe it's South American, but I feel like it's Korean characters with like soap opera stuff. Oh, you worked for this company and secretly you're a millionaire and the woman never knew and whatever. Right. And their family hated them. And I see these dramas like unfold and I'm like, why is this even anything I would care about or relevant to me? And I'm like, do better, AI, do better.
Right. Figure this out.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Now, real quick before we move on, you talked about Korean soap operas.
Yeah, sure.
I was looking through some pictures, and we were talking about Jesus coming back, right? Jesus coming back on the clouds and coming to call up his children. And we've all seen pictures of white Jesus, and we've all seen pictures of black Jesus. We've seen pictures of Jewish Jesus. But if you ever see the pictures of Korean Jesus, geez, he's like, they have him stacked, dude. He is like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Pumping Iron. Yeah. He is massive. And I don't know what the thing is with Korean Jesus, but he's been just bulking on protein and creatine and loading up, man. So just watch out, watch out for Korean Jesus because he will yoke you up.
So you might want to be in the States where we have kind of a softer, easier Jesus.
A gentle white Jesus or black Jesus, town, right?
You might get something a little more than you're, bargaining for. So, yeah, all right. I see that. I see that as something to look out for. I don't know. I think to just, that's religion and I hate religion. We better shun away from that. I think that's where people get, and being aware of what's going on in the world. I mean, one of the things I feel like that's always kind of played out to me is it seems like even though the religious Christian people are like, well, it's a little far-fetched. I don't know if I accept all that, that fantasy stuff. I know a lot of pastors won't even really preach on Revelation. One, because as you touched on in the beginning, it's very open to interpretation, right? Like I can have my opinion of how it all might play out, but I definitely don't think that it's, that this is absolute. There's no way that I'm, that anybody else is right. It's got to be the way I see it. And I think that makes it a hard thing to address. But what's weird is I feel like the powers that be, we always talk about that there's elites somewhere, the Illuminati, the, whatever secret cabal, the Skull and Bones, and all the different people who are controlling the world from behind the Masons, right? We had the big fight on.
It's actually, group. It's actually the Masons,
right? Of who is doing it, and the Masons are guys out there who are Masons and are like, it's not us, we didn't do it, and whatever, and whatever. Everything is your own opinion. I'm not out to judge. I think there's actually a scripture that says, "I choose to wait for one who makes a right judgment." Because it turns out I'm not all knowing, and it's not my job to control your life or tell you what to think. I'm just putting information out there. It turns out you decide your own destiny, right?
Right.
That's how it goes. But what I was getting at is all these powers that be, the guys behind the scenes, a lot of them seem to believe that this might play out. And that's what's weird and kind of spooky is they're working under the premise that this might be. And a lot of people seem to think that the reason we've been hearing about aliens and the government, I know they've kind of stepped back a little on this, but that they were talking about aliens are real maybe, and there's all these UFO sightings that we can't explain, and there are people from other planets and whatever. A lot of people in the hardcore kind of conspiracy end of things believe that they're kind of looking to set up a cover story for the rapture, right? When Jesus calls home his people and all these people disappear, a lot of the people who go into the conspiracy theories seem to think that maybe the government is setting up that UFO thing to be able to explain away a mass disappearance.
Yeah. Now I know that there's a lot of rumors about nerds in the Pentagon.
At the end times, right there, rumors. So,
yep,
saying
there's a lot of rumors about the nerds, the older nerds in the Pentagon, talking about how they don't want to have any relationship with aliens. They want to keep it out of pop culture because they're actually demons. And they fully believe that, and interacting with them is against the, God's will. So I don't know if those are people you want in charge, but they are the people in charge. So regardless, that's how it goes.
Right. But I guess that's the thing is, well, some of the people making decisions for you actually believe the things in the Bible might be playing out and are preparing for that. Right. And I just think we would maybe be remiss, I'm not even sure of the right word here, if we didn't consider and weren't aware of what's going on around us. Because whatever happens, you need to be aware of what people are thinking and what motivates their agenda. That's part of the whole prepping thing. So there are a lot of things that kind of come up with this that you could really need to prepare for. And I'm just saying, I feel like we need to do an episode and lay some of these out. Now we're talking about comets hitting the earth. We're talking about it raining hailstones and blood. That's probably not a good thing. No. All the ocean, or first a third of the world, the water turning bitter from a comet attack. These are things. The oceans turning to blood, and then later all the rivers and springs turning to blood.
Yeah, I would store some water, in preparation for the apocalypse.
Storage, maybe the answer for you. When they talk about, I don't know, dude, there is tons of stuff, and we're going to dig into it. We're going to lay it out. We're going to come up with how to prepare. And I'm just saying, these are things you might want to look at. So that's probably enough for this week. I feel like we laid out how, what Revelations is all about, the kind of biblical thing. There is a lot going on. There's prophets. There's, end time witnessing. There's all kinds of stuff that I didn't really touch on. I feel like there's a lot of preachers out there that if you want to dig into it, but I think you see how it fits into our world. And I think you see how it could play out and shapes up.
All right. And, before we wrap up, though, I just wanted to mention, if you've got Jesus as your, personal Lord and Savior, and you're saying, I don't even have to worry about this because I'm going to get raptured up.
Good news, good news.
That's not the facts, though. It doesn't actually say that happens before the tribulation. So even if you are a Christian, you might be stuck through a lot of this.
Before, it could be mid, it could be any time. No man knoweth the hour, Kevin.
That's right.
No man. So anyway, you guys have thoughts, concerns, things you want to hear about. You want to tell me to never mention the Bible again because you're so delicate that you were offended and you couldn't even stand to hear it. Let us know. Maybe this doesn't have the place on this show. That's your concern. Let us know. And then again, I would say it is our show. So
so we can do whatever we want, right?
Grown men, we make our own decisions, right?
You're not the boss of me.
That's it. So anyway, that's what we got. Questions, concerns, email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. You can sign up to the email list at preppingbadass.com. We also have cool gear, t-shirts, things you can get. Check it out there. Also, I did mention I will be live at Prepper Camp in September. You can go to preppercamp.com if you want to meet the man in person. Kevin, maybe, probably not is what it looks like, but I'm trying to motivate the guy to come out. Maybe if there were enough requests, Kevin might be able to change his lifestyle. I don't know. He's an important man. That's the thing. You can't really get that guy out of New York. He loves it so much. He's kind of New York through and through. You know, he wears a Big Apple shirt all the time when he goes out in town, as every New Yorker does.
As every New Yorker does. And they play Frank Sinatra's New York, New York, nonstop in their car.
That's his alarm clock when he wakes up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, with that, I would say stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
I'm Hannah. I've lost 75 pounds in 20 months with GLP-1s, plus diet and exercise. On Row, I've gone from struggling to run a mile to running farther every day. You can access FDA-approved GLP-1s online. Get the support you need to reach your weight loss goals. Go to row.co/weight to see if you qualify. I'm a paid Row partner. 20% average weight loss in 1 year in non-diabetics with obesity or overweight with a weight-related medical condition versus 3.1% in placebo arm. RX only. To stay informed about serious side effects, go to row.co/safety.
Hello.
Look what TJ Maxx dragged in.
The Devil Wears Prada 2 is now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
We are digital, we are downloadable, we are streamable.
The fashion event of the year is certified fresh.
Pull yourself together, we have work to do.
Critics say it's smart and witty and the perfect sequel.
That's all.
Get runway ready for The Devil Wears Prada 2 on Disney Plus and Hulu. Rated PG-13.